havoc in her life with guilt, shame, condemnation. But once they bring it out into the open and expose it to the Lord just does an amazing thing in women, just the healing where they're able to forgive themselves for it. They can release themselves from self-punishment, because some women, they live a life of punishing themselves for doing that. And they do it in different ways. It's not always obvious. But just to see the relief and the peace, and then they have the assurance that they're going to see their babies again in heaven, that it's not just a lost cause, you know, that when they get there, their babies will be waiting for them. So it's mainly a peace and a release from the torments and from the guilt and from the shame, and only God can do that. Only God.
So what kind of, even with the people, we've talked about maybe how long it's been since they've had the abortions, but what kind of things do you see in their life? Because, you know, I was asking, you know, you were talking about the peace and stuff they get afterwards, you know, as far as getting some healing through the Word of God. But what type of things do you see when they initially come, or even as you go other places and you minister to women who have had abortions? What type of things do you see? Like what, maybe things that are repetitive, things you've seen over and over, like maybe in, as far as things they're dealing with is what I'm kind of asking, maybe common ground as far as issues that you see that are common in women who have had abortions.
Well, if I may, I'll use myself an example, because I had an abortion at the age of 15, and it took me 22 years to be healed from that, because I never made the connection between the emotional trauma I was suffering and the abortion, because it was never portrayed as anything that could do something like this to you. And so I was going through, I was a Christian at 18. That was 3 years after. But I still dealt with these issues. And what I went through is the same thing other women, I see it in other women. But right off, I got very depressed. And again, I really didn't know why. I felt like something heavy had just settled on me, and I couldn't put my finger on it. All I knew is I wanted to get out from under it. So I remember standing at my mother's kitchen sink maybe a few weeks after I had the abortion with a knife on my wrist, because it's like, I don't know what this is and I can't take it. But by the grace of God, I didn't do anything. I didn't kill myself, but I always had suicidal tendencies.
Wow.
I think I cried every day my whole teen life after that, not knowing why. It was just something, it's like I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I began drinking a lot as a teen, and that's what a lot of women do, because they're trying to numb the pain. And so some women will get into drugs, we've seen that, some into alcohol, some will become more promiscuous, just trying to find something to numb the pain. Some women who aborted for like career, they will become workaholics because they feel like they have to compensate for the life that they took. They have to compensate for what they did. They have to make it worth it. So they'll work themselves and work themselves trying to be okay to justify why I did what I did. And then I had a lot of anger. I didn't know why I was so angry, but it's like I could just see it in my face all the time, and certain things would just make me snap. And I would pray, I was like, God, what is the matter with me? And then I had a time where I thought I had been sexually abused, because I've been ministering to women for a long time. And women who had been sexually abused, I saw their pain in me, but I had no recollection of ever being abused. But I'm like, wow, what they're going through is a lot like what I feel. And I was praying, I was asking God, I was reading books. It's like, God, what is it? Have I been abused? I talked to my mother, talked to my sister, and it was like, we don't know anything. And when the Lord actually brought the revelation that the abortion was the reason for all of this emotional suffering I had, he told me, he said, that's how you were violated. And so what women don't understand, that abortion is just another type of rape of women. And see, people can say that there are no emotional effects to abortion, or it only affects a certain amount of people, or whatever, but I know from experience, because no one taught me this. No one sat down with me and said, Lydia, because of the abortion, you may feel this, that, or the other thing. Everything I say about it is what I've lived. I've learned it through life's lesson, and you can't argue with my experience. You can't say that that didn't happen or that wasn't true. And so a lot of women are suffering from low self-esteem, you know, the same resulting emotional behavior as sexual abuse. Low self-esteem, low self-image, depression, feeling unworthy, unfit to live, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. I was guilty and I didn't even know why. I had a guilt complex. If anything happened, it was my fault, you know. And this is what women deal with. And it manifests in different ways. It's not always like it manifested with me, but it, to some extent, is happening in women's lives, and they're mistaking their pain for who they are. Like, if you think that you're just a hot-tempered person, because you meet people like that, they say, I just have a short temper. You know, I'm just angry. That's just who I am. I just go off on people. No, it's something behind that. But women don't know how to place it because they don't know that abortion can do this to you. I had a lot of fear. Once I had children, I had a fear of losing them. And so what you would call me was an overprotective mom.
Right, okay.
But no, it's because I had this unnatural fear that I was going to lose them, that they were going to be taken away from me. You know, and it was a result of the abortion.
Right, okay.
Just all kinds of things women are dealing with, and they think it's just them. They think, oh, I'm just a workaholic person, you know, I just love to work, or I'm just an angry person, or I'm someone who doesn't want people close to me, because shame will keep people at a distance. You know, if they get too close, they may see, you know, who I really am or what I did. So they come off as, you know, standoffish. But that's just shame. It's hard for them to let people in, but they think, oh, that's just who I am. No, it's not who you are.
I like what you said, how going back to what you said you felt like you were being tormented after you did something like that. And from the people that I know that have done stuff like that, they're even in their appearance and their demeanor, there's no peace.
No.
And you can tell. And I even, with those individuals, I don't know if they've, you know, seek counseling. I can't say whether, you know, God has healed them or not, you know, that's between them and God. But the fact you said that there was a torment and you felt suicidal, that just, and how that ties back into that, you know, abortion and murdering a child is just kind of like, wow, I didn't know, like, that there were so many, I knew there were psychological effects, but I didn't know how deep it is, because even with talking to people or even with watching people, like you were saying, nobody can tell you anything versus your experience.
Right.
Experiencing something and witnessing something is totally different. So, you know, really taking the time to explain that. You were talking about how you even see a lot of the same issues in women that have been abused as women that have had abortions.
Absolutely.
Because that was a violation. So I'm wondering, even as you go and you minister to different women, I know you said that some people, it kind of takes a minute before they'll really be receptive.
Yes.
Or that a lot of times they'll get angry. You know, when you hit people's hot spot, when you really get on the inside, it can stir people up. But I'm just wondering of the maybe even testimonies and different things that people have had as you go on different places and minister about this and minister to these type of women. I mean, what type of things have you seen? I mean, have you seen a lot of these people really get what they were looking for, really get that release and that relief?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And it really takes place in the 8th week. It's a 9-week session that we deal with, because really it takes some time to deal with this. This issue is, so the long haul is good. But in the 8th week, we have a memorial service. Wow. And that's where it really gets intense, because the women, they name their babies. Oh, wow. And then they do a tribute to them, however, you know, they feel like they want to do it. For my particular baby, I wrote a song. Of course, I couldn't sing it, so one of my best friends came and she sang the song for me. Some women bake a cake, or some write what they always wanted to say to their babies. And that's when a real release comes, because a lot of the depression related to abortion is the fact that you have unresolved grief. You have a loss. Whether you chose the abortion or not, you've lost a child. And because there's no outlet for that with abortion. With miscarriages, maybe, you know, you have support groups, but no one, if you've aborted, you don't feel like you have a right to grieve or get any comfort or anything. So there's no closure. There's nothing. It's like you abort and it's gone. And so a lot of the depression is related to the grief. And that was a big part of my depression. I didn't know I was mourning the loss of the child, but I was. I had all the classical symptoms of grief, but I didn't know it.
Right,
I was grieving.
Anger and the
crying,
all of
that.
Depression,
And so, you know, so women, you know, they don't know that they're grieving. And so coming through the ministry and going through the memorial service, they get that chance to release it, right. You know, to face it, and it's just like a weight that lifts off their shoulders. Okay. Now, practically, we had a woman in the group who, she had 3 children. She had abortions. She had more than one. Mm-hmm. And when she got married and started having children, she never went into labor. They always had to induce her. She never went into labor on her own. So she came through the group, and God did a miraculous healing in her life. With her next pregnancy, her body went into labor. Wow, okay. It's like her body said, you know, if I get pregnant, I'm not going to give birth anyway, so I'm not going into labor. But once God did the healing, she was able to give birth. Right. That's tremendous. That's major. That's you know, and even for me, I had postpartum depression with the first 4 of my children so badly that with my 4th child, I really wanted to die. I was like, God, how can I die but not hurt this baby? I had it started while I was pregnant that time, but it's so much postpartum depression. And then when I went through and got my healing for my 5th baby, I had no postpartum depression at all. So this is how I know it's real, right? You know, and looking at women, and then the fact that women can share, that they will actually tell someone, yeah, I've aborted.
It makes me think about the title of that book, Can't Keep Silent. I do want to take a few moments, we're almost through, and talk about this book. Can you kind of tell the viewers and the listeners what this book is about, how you came about writing it?
In 1988, the Lord told me I would write a book about abortion. I was like, okay, I didn't know what about abortion or anything. But in, I think, 1998, that's when I received the healing for myself. And then in 2003, the Lord said, now's the time for you to write. The book. Because I had been through the whole process.
So is this kind of like a personal testimony?
It is a personal testimony, and I decided to write it like that because sometimes telling women something, just facts, it doesn't click with them.
Right, but when you show your experience.
Yeah, my experience. This is what I went through. This is how it looked on me. Then they can say, oh, you know, I feel that. That happened to me. I look like that. I wanted to give them a picture.
So is this book for people that have had abortions, or is this more for people that are thinking about having an abortion? So I'm just wondering if this is preventative or post?
Both.
Both, okay.
Both. I have had women who read the book who were considering abortion and said, no, I changed my mind. Okay. Because they don't want to open themselves up to that. Because it's not just an emotional thing, it's a spiritual thing as well. You know, and it's for women who have aborted. It's for people to understand what abortion does to women. And I think people in churches need to read it because there are so many women. I think 1 in 4 women abort. Wow. And it's even higher in that in the black community. Black women have the highest rate of abortion. Wow. And that's where my heart is, to help black women. Okay. And so people in churches need to read it so that they can understand, wow, women in our church could be suffering like this, and we need to know how to help them. And I do want to say, you know, if you're suffering from an abortion, there's a website called optionline.org. And you just put in the location where you live, and it'll give you centers in your area that will help you with that.
Wow, okay. I just, again, want to thank you for being on here, and I also hope they put the shot up of the book. And people will be able to go to GoFree, it's GoFreeMinistries.com. Yes. And they can get more information about that book. I think I'm going to, you know, personally read it. You know, I got my copy and see, you know, what it's all about. I'd like to thank you for being my guest today. I want to thank all my viewers for tuning in this week. Again, my name is DeAndrea Cunningham, and you've been watching Advancing the Kingdom.